They gave up their manhood for power, but the price was far worse than death. Inside the glittering halls of the Forbidden City, where crimson walls hid whispers and golden dragons watched over 1,000 secrets, lived men who were neither truly men nor slaves. They were the eunuchs. Once they were sons, brothers, and lovers. But in pursuit of survival, or under the cruelty of fate, they were remade, stripped of what made them human, yet thrust into the heart of an empire that worshipped obedience above all else. Within those marble courtyards and shadowed corridors, they walked softly, carrying messages that could change the fate of kingdoms. Their silence was their weapon, their loyalty a fragile mask. They guarded the emperor, served his concubines, and controlled the palace that even ministers feared to enter. Broken in body, yet dangerous in influence, these men rose from nothing to command everything. This is the dark truth of the eunuchs who ruled China's forbidden palace. Before we begin, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you won't miss any of our deep dives into history's darkest chapters. Your support really helps this channel grow and reach more curious minds. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, check out YouTube's Hype feature. It's a simple way to show love and keep these stories alive. Every bit of engagement means the world. The imperial system that created eunuchs. From the founding of the Ming Dynasty in 1368 to its collapse in 1644, China's imperial court depended on a system built not just on bloodlines, but silence. Eunuchs, men who had undergone castration, became indispensable. Their origin lay in both fear and necessity. Fear that male servants could threaten the emperor or impregnate his concubines. Necessity to guard inner palaces, manage rituals, and serve in intimate roles no other man could. Many willingly gave up their bodies, often as poor children or sold by desperate families, for a chance at survival, status, or escape from poverty. Others had it forced upon them. The act was both physical and symbolic, removal of family, sexuality, and future. Once part of this system, eunuchs began their training young. They were educated in palace protocol, ritual, and service. Yet from the beginning, their lives bore contradiction. Holy property of the emperor, yet among the most powerful courtiers. Institutions evolved around them. The Forbidden City was more than palace. It was a labyrinth of trust, rumor, and surveillance. Eunuchs occupied key positions: the Eastern Depot, secret police, ceremonial offices, inner court supervision. Their lack of family made them useful, supposedly loyal. Confucian scholars, officials, and philosophers often decried them as dangerous, unrestrained, a necessary evil or outright evil. In this crucible, the absolute power of the emperor fed both virtue and vice. As eunuchs became embedded in the machinery of the court, every command passed through them carried weight. They were invisible guardians of ritual and forbidden halls, and for many, the trade seemed worth the loss, until the horrors began. The brutality of castration and life in the Forbidden City. Castration in Imperial China was no gentle procedure. The physical horror was immense. Boys as young as 9, sometimes younger, were taken or sold into palace service, their genitals fully removed in crude operations. Survival was uncertain. Infection, bleeding, shock. Many perished either immediately or in the days that followed. Those who survived carried scars invisible to the court, but searing in their own memories. Beyond the physical mutilation, lay a lifetime of exile, emotional, social, and psychological. Eunuchs were often isolated, forbidden to marry or father children, marked as other. Their survival depended on servitude, secrecy, and constant vigilance. They slept near palace walls, dined in shadowed halls, existed as shadows themselves. Yet their proximity to power exposed them to danger. Rival eunuchs, jealous courtiers, even emperors who could order them killed on a whim. Within the forbidden city, daily life was a high-stakes ritual. Eunuchs managed ceremonies, inner chambers, concubine quarters. They bore witness to palace intrigues, overheard whispers of betrayal, and served both as instruments of policy and scapegoats for excess. The palace was both sanctuary and prison. Tasks, small or grand, were done under surveillance. One misstep, favor lost, favor seized, could lead to ruin. Physically, they aged differently, skin thinning, cold extremities, sometimes hormonal, and health issues related to castration. Culturally, they were constrained. Their bodies were a sacrifice in exchange for an identity defined entirely by their loyalty. Yet many endured, not just to survive, but to accumulate influence. And thus, the brutality formed the price for access to power few non-eunuchs would ever imagine. The paradox of power, some eunuchs becoming political puppeteers. In the halls of the Forbidden City, the powerless often held the keys. Eunuchs, though stripped of family and sexuality, found routes to power others envied. One of the most notorious examples, Wei Zhongxian, who in the early 17th century, under the weak and disinterested Tianqi emperor, emerged from obscurity to become the de facto ruler of the empire. Wei assembled spies, controlled palace guards, manipulated favor, and brokered influence over court officials. He had temples built in his honor, and his name invoked awe and fear. Under his grip, ministries bent to his will. Scholar officials who opposed him were purged, exiled, or executed. But power for eunuchs was always fragile. They had no bloodline, no formal legitimacy outside the emperor's favor. Their power depended on patronage, on the whim of rulers, a changed protector, a new faction, a shift in court mood, and suddenly the eunuch could become powerless or dead. Moreover, their public image remained contested. Confucian scholars saw them as corrupt, morally compromised. Many emperors resented their influence, even as they needed them. The eunuch's paradox. Immense behind-the-scenes authority, yet always at risk, always outside the formal power structures they manipulated. The downfall, betrayal, executions, erasure from history. When Emperor Tianqi died in 1627, Wei Zhongxian's empire of influence crumbled. The new Chongzhen emperor, seeking to restore orthodoxy, banned Wei's faction, banned temples erected in his name, and initiated a purge of those associated with his corruption. Wei, facing trial and shame, committed suicide to avoid capture. But Wei was not alone in this fate. Other powerful eunuchs, Wang Zhen, for example, had already fallen in disgrace. Wang Zhen wielded enormous influence in mid-Ming days, advising emperors and guiding policy. But his downfall came during the Tumu crisis, 1449, when his misguided counsel led to disaster. His reputation was posthumously condemned. After death or removal, many eunuchs were erased quietly. Official histories often downplayed their roles or blamed catastrophes on corrupt eunuchs, casting them as villains. Names removed, records destroyed, temples dismantled, their tombs neglected, their artistry, patronage, or administrative innovations often ignored in favor of moralistic condemnations. Even today, their stories are patchy. Some survived in folklore, others in fragments of archives. But as dynasties changed, eunuchs faded. Their presence, once at the core of the imperial machine, became something shameful or simply forgotten. In a palace built on silence, the loudest screams were the ones history forgot. The eunuchs of China traded flesh for favor. They were the invisible hands that shaped policy, the hushed voices that directed emperors. But their power came at a cost beyond loss of manhood. It was the forfeiture of identity, of legacy, of memory. They served in gold-lined halls and learned every intrigue, yet they could not serve themselves. What lingers now, etched in ruined tombs, burned records, and whispered tales, is not the glory they seized, but the tragedy they endured. For in the Forbidden City, those who were silenced became the ones whose stories echo loudest, reminding us that power, once given, can twist both heart and history. Thank you, and see you in the next episode of Dark Law.